I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for joining us for one of our talks today. I'm so thrilled today to be joined by the wonderful Fernando Carsa to talk all about his Apple TV Plus show, Acapulco. And you actually booked this role just a few months out of finishing school where you were training as an actor. And so, having gone through training and been at school right before you did this, what are some of the tools that you suddenly found that school had really set you up for, and some of the really useful skill sets that you developed through your training that suddenly came into play in working on a project like this?
It's actually really funny that you mentioned that because I graduated in the midst of the beginning of the pandemic. So we actually learned a lot of how to kind of like work with the camera. Coming from a theater school, you learn a lot how to be on stage. And right now, the entertainment industry is switching into this world where everything is, you film yourself on tape to audition. A lot of plays happen online, like via Zoom readings. We are working with the camera now. So it's really funny because, that was kind of like the silver lining in such a really tough time. The fact that we got to learn a bit of skill of working with the camera and how to do really good self-tapes, which then later became very handy when I had to audition. And Acapulco was my first time on set, so I genuinely didn't know what I was doing when it comes to working with a camera. And I feel like knowing the little things that I learned over the last few months of my course of education through Zoom kind of helped me a little bit to feel more comfortable with how to work with it. But of course, there were also acting techniques that have come very in handy, auditioning techniques. And I think most of all, I went to UCLA, and what I love so much about the program that I went to, it's that they taught me a lot about the value of what makes me different. They taught me that what makes me different is what makes me special. And that's what ended up happening with Memo in Acapulco. Every single thing that I once was told I was going to stop me from making it into the business, it's what makes Memo special. And UCLA allowed me to understand that I needed that in order to compete in this industry and to put myself out there. I needed to completely love myself and present myself saying, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And it's working out so far.
I really love that so much. And I feel like that also carries through to the essence of the show in so many ways. And if we look at the comedy of the show, Memo comes in and he's this really wonderful comic relief in a lot of scenes, but it's not because we're laughing at him. He's not the punchline of any joke. And so how did that inform where you found a lot of the comedic stylings of him as a character and what you wanted his comedic voice to be?
Yeah, one of the things that makes me the proudest about the character, and I actually have to thank our producers and our writers for this and our showrunners. There was a time where we had a meeting and I was with some of them and I was like, I just want to thank you because as a plus size person and a plus size actor, the fact that you wrote this comedic character where his comedy doesn't come from his appearance or his weight or his relationship with food, that means a lot to the plus size community. And that's what I love so much about Memo. Nobody makes fun of his weight, the way he looks. He has a pretty unique, even style of fashion, and nobody even criticizes him for that. And he's a very free spirit. But then that allowed for the comedy to come from his essence and what he believes in and the risk that he decides to take. And then I was able to inform that by connecting with my inner child because he was so naive and so fearless and he knew so little about the world that he just went ahead and tried everything he wanted. So yeah, I feel very happy and very proud to play this part, that offers this new view of plus size people in media.
Yeah, and you mentioned that naivety that comes from your inner child, which we really, we feel it in certain beats through Memo, but it also, there's a certain naivety with things that he just hasn't been exposed to or experienced before. It's his first time having a job out in the world and figuring out all the dynamics, and he's thrust into the laundry room and treated the way that he is. But at the same time, it doesn't kind of again like punch down on his naivety. It's not like, oh well, he should know this, and the comedy again doesn't come from that. And so what was that like naivety but also like confidence that comes from it that you really wanted to develop in him?
Yeah, well, if audiences pay close attention to some of the one-liners that he delivers, they will quickly figure it out that he comes from a pretty tough background. He doesn't have a lot The relationship between his parents seems to be kind of icky. He's the only boy out of six children. All of the rest of his siblings are girls. Um, so, I mean, I'm not saying that's bad, by the way. I'm just saying, kind of like explaining his situation, but he does have some aspects of his life that are a little rocky and, not necessarily the best. So when he's presented with this opportunity of working at the most majestic, wonderful resort in all of Acapulco, it's like, oh my God, that lifetime that I've always dreamed about, it's right in front of me. I have to take advantage of everything. So I think that naiveness comes from, living in this dream world and being like, oh my God, I'm making my dream come true, which came kind of in handy for me because it was my first role in TV and I was making my TV debut. So what I was feeling on set as Fernando, Memo was feeling it working in Las Colinas. So, but yeah, the naive, being naive, sorry, comes from that, from, the fact that you're in this, what you've always wanted, you're in that place. I have to take advantage of everything. And sometimes, you make the wrong decisions because of you're so, excited about it all.
But you're bringing up there the fact that the script does have all these little lines peppered throughout that give us details of his home life and his family. It's like that informs his interpersonal dynamic with his boss, where he's trying to give advice because he thinks that he needs advice about dating from him because he's like, I've got sisters, I know what to do. And what was your process and that journey of going through the scripts and really just finding those little one lines like, okay, he's the only boy amongst all of his sisters. Okay, this is the dynamic between his parents, and then taking those individual lines and really building out into this full, complete world for him as a character.
Yeah, I mean, they always say that if you're looking for answers, look at the script. You have to look for the tiny details. Looking for details is the best thing that you can do as an actor because the writer is really, really providing you with everything that you need. Um, but no, I mean, when you're filming the pilot, you don't know where your character is necessarily coming from or where it's going yet. So I just remember the few weeks before we started filming, I just sit down and I went through the script and I try to find those little tiny details that informed where this character is coming from, why is he here, what's his purpose in the story, what's this relationship with Maximo, his best friend, like, why does he want to work at this place? And I kind of just created this background story. And, as the season progressed, then I was able to like, oh, that's where it's actually coming from. Oh, that's what that was. But yeah, I just kind of had to build this background story and focus on the tiny little details that the writers gave me. We have incredible writers, and they were very careful with making sure that like the comedy of Memo comes from a vulnerable place. Not just they didn't just write jokes. There's a reason why he says what he says and he does what he does. So yeah, and I think that helped me play him too. The fact that I was like, I want to approach this comedy from a very vulnerable place, and the fact that he completely believes what he's saying and what he's doing right now, and that's what makes it so funny. The fact that he's so committed to that moment.
And it's so interesting as well because the entire story is being told from Maximo's perspective. And there's a lot of the narration as well, I imagine, gives a lot of detail. And how did the fact that that's the perspective of the entire show and how we're seeing Memo inform the way that you looked at him as a character, knowing that this isn't necessarily his version of events, but how somebody else saw him in his life?
Yeah, I've thought about this. Like, hopefully we'll get a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth season. And I think it would be really interesting if eventually older Memo steps into the picture. And now we get to see some of the story from his point of view. I wonder how that would change my portrayal of the character too, but yeah, it's really interesting. And I do wonder some of the most comedic moments. I'm like, oh my God, how much is Maximo actually making up? And maybe this didn't actually happen, but who knows? Maybe we'll have to wait a few seasons to find that out.
And was it important to you as well that as a character that he is always someone who, takes whatever is thrown at him and just looks for the best in any situation? Like even just little things like when he sneaks off to one of the hotel rooms because him and Maximo are going to watch a sports game together, and all of a sudden all the staff find out about it and it's not at all what he planned and what he wanted that situation to be. And at the same time, he then just looks at a new situation and is like, this is really great for different reasons. And was that an important aspect for you to carry forth in him?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, when I found out that I was playing the comedic relief in the supporting role, it often that's our job. Like that type of character is always that's their job to kind of like bring joy and light into the show or the scene. And I was very proud that they trusted me with that responsibility because it's not necessarily easy, but I do think it's the best uh, job in the world to make people happy. So to me, that was very important. The fact that, I mean, we have a really feel good show overall. We have our sadder moments and more dramatic moments, but overall, the show, it's meant to make people feel good. But with Memo, like you get to lean on that a little bit more. And you do get to show people, hey, you can look for the silver lining and the positive side of things. And after coming from the last few months or years that we've been through with this whole pandemic, um, kind of bringing that joy and that message of like, no, let's keep it positive, let's move forward. I mean, yeah, this look it's bad, but look at this. I think it was really important and really needed. So yeah, I feel very blessed about the fact that they gave me that opportunity to do that for audiences, to bring that vision of like, no, keep going, you got this, believe in yourself. Look, you accomplished this, you've done it before, you'll do it again. Yeah, I feel like a cheerleader, and it's fun.
And he's such a cheerleader to Maximo, and it's really beautiful to watch the friendship dynamic that you and Enrique created. And there's such a history that comes with these two characters having grown up as kids, and even what you were talking about earlier with, from Memo, what it means to him to be working at this hotel, and it's, him and Maximo, for both of them, it's been such a hope and dream that they shared with one another, and they really have a lot of life goals, and they want to carry each other along the way. And so how did you and Enrique work to not just really create the chemistry of your characters, but also just that really intrinsic history and shared worldview and their hopes and dreams as well?
I mean, we definitely, as actors, we both did our homework individually, and then together we would like get together and talk about our scenes and discuss them, analyze them. But I think that what helped the most was that bonding and the friendship and the brotherhood that we created. Um, we actually got to share dressing room a lot of the days that we were filming. And what's interesting is like our characters usually start the episodes together, but then they drift into their own journeys and then they might come back together at the end. So when he's filming, I might not be filming. When I'm filming, he's not filming. Like we rarely crossed paths, sorry, unless it was one of our days off. But the days that we got to be in the holding area of actors or the dressing rooms together, we really got to bond, and we really created. I mean, what you guys see on screen is just a tiny piece of the beautiful relationship that we've created. We've become really good friends. Even to this day, we support each other with like career, not decisions, but like career conversations, or talk about the show, even like romantic stuff, like our love lives or whatever. Like we really do, we're vulnerable with each other, and we help each other out. And I think that's what helped it the most, the fact that we actually created a very beautiful brotherhood behind the scenes. So when we were on set and we were rehearsing and we were filming, we were just playing. And he was respectful of me as an actor and my choices. I was respectful of his choices. We discussed maybe what we could play around. Um, it's just authenticity. That's what that is, honestly. We just sparked. And like the moment that we met we didn't even test with each other. We didn't have a chemistry test or anything. It's like God and the universe just put us at the right place at the right time together, and this spark just happened.
I love that. And in working with the cast and crew overall, you also, in a weird way, it sounds like it was probably a beautiful gift in the fact that you were all staying in that hotel location where you filmed the show. So there was a real immersion to it, and, probably a lot more time to be around each other, get to know each other, build that chemistry when it came to the working with the crew as well and the creative team. And so how did that really enhance a lot of the experience and some of the things that you feel that it then carried forth into what you were able to bring into your character as a result?
I think that since we were together 24/7, it allowed to have more room for collaboration with every single department. So like with the costume department or hair and makeup, I mean, which I guess it happens often in TV, the actor has an input. But in this sense, like we were all having lunch together and talking about it, or even with like the camera crew. I mean, being my first time working on the show, I really wanted to absorb everything as a sponge. So I'd be like, what do I need to do? What do I need to ask to serve you better? Um, it enhanced the collaboration, but also the relationships with one another, you know, being there for one another in set, because set days can be long and exhausting, you know, and when you create these deep relationships, you become each other's supporter, you know, and like you pat each other in the back and you're like, you're gonna be fine. You got this. 2 more hours, 2 more hours. We got this. Let's pull through. So yeah, it felt like a family, you know, and it's just, it was like vacation every day with your family. You finish filming, then you go and have sushi at the restaurant at the hotel, or you go in the pool for a little bit. Like it was hard to say goodbye. That's the best way that I can explain it. It was a family, and we learned so much from each other, and we love each other so much. We really hope we get to go back and go through this all over again.
I hope so too. And you were bringing up the costume department there, and the costume details on the show are so exquisite, and even just the detailing of what everybody's wearing working at the hotel. And so for you, how were costumes an expression of character? Because even for Memo and the fact that we see him in that uniform the majority of the time, there still are those little details and those inflections. And he really takes every small detail as an expression of his charisma, even down to the moment you were mentioning before where he shows up with an earring. And it's like, that tells us another side of him.
Yeah, I mean, um, when I first arrived to Mexico when we were filming, I was still trying to find the pieces for my character. And what's so beautiful about, I mean, coming from my theater background, in theater you don't get to see your costume until almost opening night. In TV, you get to see every single piece of the puzzle at the very beginning, so you can grasp onto that character quickly. Um, and it was my first time working that way, and working with the costuming department and also hair and makeup really informed where Memo was going. And if I'm being completely honest, I think I trusted them so much that they also knew who Memo was, that I never really like interfered. I was just like, give me what you think and I'll do it. And I'll kind of like, I'll work with it. And they made some really not outrageous, but like kind of crazy choices that like, I would look at those outfits, especially the civilians one, like when I'm just in my regular day, and I'll be like, I would never in my life wear that. But Memo would, because Memo is a free spirit and he just lives the life that he wants to live, you know? So I kind of like gave them that authority. They would come to me and be like, hey, do you like this? Do you like that? I maybe my necklace that I chose myself. But everything else, and in episode 9, I asked for a bit of a glow up, which you guys get to see. But everything else, I just trusted them with it. And I kind of like, I wanted to like get informed from what they created. Because I also appreciate the designer's point of view and what they create and what they see, their vision. I think it's important to also respect it and just trust them. So I just did. I just trusted them, and they did a wonderful job. And every time that they dressed me, I was like, oh my God, I feel so weird, but at the same time, this worked so well. God dang it. So I loved it.
And obviously the visual elements are so iconic with the setting of the show being in the 80s, but that also informs character perspectives and outlooks and what do they know about the world. Obviously back then we didn't have things like internet to know things about different cultures as much and people that we hadn't met. And so how did that specific time period inform a lot of the outlook and worldview and perspective that you shaped into Memo?
I think, I mean, I've always believed that the 80s is such a exciting and interesting era. I mean, I feel like a lot of the technology that we have nowadays in the fashion is informed by that specific time period. So to me, I always imagine it to be a very exciting time filled with new things. You know, a lot of new things were coming out, a lot of like bold outfits and hairstyles. And when you have a hotel like the ones the team created, they make that job so easy. And the fact that we were living there and we got to see the hotel go from its regular color to what now Las Colinas was like, oh my God, it was exciting for us. What a lot of people don't know is that a lot of the sets that you got to see, like the Gallardo family, that was in the parking lot of the hotel. They completely built that like apartment complex. The house was an actual house, not a working house, but like it looked like a house. And even like where the orientations happened, the hallways of the employee area, everything, they built a lot of that. So it was so easy to like get immersed in this like excitement of an era when everything around you is so exciting as well. And I mean, a lot of our crew was my age in the 80s. So they were also sharing their experience in that time period with us. And that also informed us. They just made it kind of easy for us. It was just so exciting. Everything was larger than life. Everything.
And I also really enjoy the fact that you get to play this character in a way where he does have fallibilities and he makes mistakes and he doesn't always make the right choices. But at the same time, you still take every mistake that he makes as a learning experience, and he does have the ability to step back and reflect. And even when it's something as simple as what item is he selecting from the lost and found, and he takes the Rubik's cube, and then he has the opportunity to go back for Maximo's necklace, and he doesn't even do that the second time, but the third time he gets there. And so what was that like for you in the way that you got to look at every scenario and every choice that he made, and then really think about the way that he would evolve as a character off the back of that?
Yeah, I think focusing a lot on that backstory helped a lot because it's like, oh my God, how can you choose a toy instead of like the most important possession of your best friend? Like, I hate you, Memo, at this point in my life. And when I was watching it with my family, they were like, are you kidding me? And then my friends would be like, you had a second chance and you still mess it up. And he's like, well, you guys have to understand. This kid says he only has one chair in his house. He's never had a toy. Like to him, having a Rubik's Cube is like winning the freaking lottery. It's huge. Working at the laundry room, he washes his clothes by hand and dries them in like a little piece of a string or like, you guys, like this is a magic world to him. And of course he has these impulses, but like you say, he always ends up doing the right thing or trying to. And none of his intentions are malicious. He's just he sees a lot of like once in a lifetime opportunities and he takes them. So I just focus a lot on like, listen, if you were presented with a Britney Spears ticket concert, would you take it? Yes, Fernando, you would. That's how Memo feels. So yeah, I really try to dig into why he would do everything he did. And thankfully, the writers presented me with a lot of solutions after I committed the crimes or the wrong actions, I guess. But yeah, I just focus on. I mean, he doesn't have much, and now he's in this dream world. Of course, he wants to take advantage of everything.
And I also wanted to touch upon the collaboration with directors on the series because you had the opportunity to work with some really fantastic directors who come from, I mean, comedy royalty, essentially. So many of the creative team just have worked on some of the most iconic comedy shows over the years. And so were there particular moments or character beats or scenes that you really remember where that collaboration with any of the directors really came into play into finding a moment for him?
Well, the director of our pilot, Richard Shepard, I mean, he created this world. Let's start right there. So he already gifted us so much to base our characters on us. Like this world of Las Colinas, the Pink Hotel, the personality that the environment has, he came up with that. And then you have other directors like Jay Karras, who directed 4 of our episodes, who really like I feel like we create this more kind of like a personal bonding creating Memo as well, because he allowed me to play so much, so much. And then you have directors like Tristan Shapiro, who like also allowed me to play a lot, but like he got to direct some of like the heaviest episodes for Memo with like the most heartfelt moments too. So yeah, they were all incredible in how they allowed me to play. And they also asked me for different things. Can you do it this way now? Can you do it that way? And that also allowed me to find some of like the Memo ticks. And I feel like he does a lot of things with his hands, or like his shoulders are always kind of tense, and like through playing with what the directors gave me, I was able to find those little tiny details on the character that allowed me to like embody him and like really become him super quickly in a matter of seconds. So yeah, they all helped in one way or another, and they were also, all of them are wonderful people to work with. They treat everyone with kindness and love and care. That it just they all created a safe space for us, the actors, to take risks and try new things, and they were open to our suggestions too.
Yeah. Well, I think off the back of that, the reason that your performance in the show is so great because it's not just about the overall charisma that you exude in it, but it's about all those tiny details that you've textured into there as well. So congratulations on an amazing first season, Fernando.
Thank you.
Crossing my fingers for, many, many more seasons of this show to come, and thank you.
Thank you.